Let's face it, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System is one of the greatest home video game consoles ever released. From the moment it hit shelves in 1991, it captivated the attention of millions of gamers around the globe. The platform offered countless classics, but some of them stood above the rest. In this video, I'll be sharing my top 10 favorite SNES games ranked from 10 to 1. And let me tell you, this task was incredibly difficult. I went back and forth on some of these rankings, but ultimately, I can stand behind this list. Keep in mind, for the purposes of this video, I'll only consider titles that were released on the SNES in North America. With that said, let's get right into it. The 10th greatest SNES game in my mind is Secret of Mana, which really turned heads with its unique action-oriented gameplay. By everyone's judgment at the time, this was a really groundbreaking RPG for several reasons. First, it used a unique gameplay mechanic to refresh your weapon swing strength periodically, so it was more accessible to fans of action games that dared to venture into the RPG world for the first time. Second, it allowed multiple players to enjoy the game at the same time, something virtually no other RPG did. It was incredibly fun to play with your friends. The weapon advancement and spell system worked out pretty well, and the ring interface was easy to use. The game was just polished and user-friendly. The bosses were also strong and intimidating, and really took a lot of thought and effort to beat. And man, this soundtrack is awesome. The music score seemed to push the limits of the system, and the melodies won't leave your head after you hear them, even after almost 30 years. Secret of Mana still has a huge cult following, and was certainly the best action RPG released on the system in North America. Coming in at number 9 is Super Castlevania IV, which brought the Castlevania series into the 16-bit era for the first time. It was a groundbreaking title that captured all the best aspects of the series: fantastic level design, horrifying enemies, and great bosses. Another innovation that really excited me about this title and is still fun today is the directional whip. Instead of just being able to lash it in one direction like all the previous Castlevania games, this one lets you fling it in 8 directions, which really expanded the gameplay. I mean, come on, you could even use the whip to fling yourself around like Indiana Jones. You just can't beat that. Super Castlevania IV also used a lot of cool graphical effects for the era, like the rotating room. This really stood out for its time. The title's dark soundtrack was also oozing with the dark flavor the series is known for, and the bosses are still nostalgic for me. Who could forget the Twin Vipers? It was just a near-perfect action platformer all around. I think the game's challenge is a bit on the weak side, but that doesn't hurt it too badly for me, because I still find it fun to pick up and play today. I think it's easily a top 3 Castlevania game, and definitely the best on the SNES. Some may be surprised that number 8 is SimCity, a title I poured countless hours into in the early years of the SNES. Even though it competed with Super Mario World and F-Zero, this was the SNES launch title I played the most. I couldn't get over how customizable the whole experience was. You pick your map, the exact arrangement of your buildings, and even your transportation networks. Citizens respond to how well you're running things, and you have to adapt on the fly. There are even natural disasters that can destroy all of your hard work, but that's part of the fun too. Of course, there was also the hidden trick you could pull off to give yourself max money and build the city of your dreams, and when I discovered this, I couldn't believe how cool it was. I dedicated hours to creating the perfect city layouts and experimenting with different arrangements to gain higher populations, and tried to beat the cities my friends had designed. There really was no endpoint, and that was the fun of it. And wow, the soundtrack was just fantastic, almost hypnotic in its laid-back, refreshing melodies that set your mind at ease as you build. The songs evolve as your city grows as well, giving you a better sense of achievement on the way up. And hey, if you just want to be a goofball and create a useless clump of roads, you can do that too. SimCity is the source of tons of open-ended fun, and incorporated a PC-based game onto the SNES in a very effective way. Number 7 is Ogre Battle: March of the Black Queen, the greatest strategy RPG of its time. I love the fact that each playthrough is so unique based upon how you respond to the initial set of questions and the choices you made throughout the story. Ogre Battle puts you in the position of a commander trying to liberate towns, and you have full control of movements, troop compositions, and really how the entire story unfolds. The multiple endings, alignment system, and tarot cards were all fun aspects that drew me into this one. It was also packed with fantasy lore that all fans of the genre will appreciate. The title was a true trailblazer when there just weren't that many tactical RPGs of its kind, and definitely inspired future classics like Dragon Force. Enix gave us all a huge gift by bringing this one to North America. It's just a shame that so few copies were ever released. If you want a take on tactical RPGs that's completely different from grid-based games, Ogre Battle is the one to go back to today. I think the 6th greatest SNES game is Super Mario RPG: Legend of the Seven Stars, the famous collaboration between Square and Nintendo at the tail end of the system's life cycle. This game brilliantly combines the action mechanics of Super Mario games with the turn-based battles that made Square famous, but the title really was so much more than that. It had a fun, over-the-top story with new and familiar characters in the Super Mario universe, and the game was filled with hidden items. It even had an incredibly challenging special boss too. Also, the graphics in this game were just phenomenal. The bright colors, beautiful sprites, and isometric areas were a true visual masterpiece, and made the title look like it belonged in the generation of gaming after the one it came out in. The title was a little on the short and easy side, but man was it fun. Lots of balance between characters made it possible to use the team you wanted, and who didn't love the timed attacks? That was a fun concept used for the first time in RPGs that I can recall, and kept the player on his toes at all times. Super Mario RPG managed to be a game that both Mario and Final Fantasy fans could be proud of, and that was a pretty impressive feat. A game like this could have easily gone the other way. My 5th favorite SNES game is Square's first huge RPG smash hit on the system, Final Fantasy IV, otherwise known as Final Fantasy II in the US. This was a game that was wildly anticipated by RPG freaks such as myself. Because North American fans didn't get Final Fantasy II and III on the NES, the hype for this one was that much bigger. The game was finally released here in 1991, and it didn't disappoint at all. In fact, Square knocked this one out of the park. Free from the space limitations of the NES, Final Fantasy IV introduced us to a new cast of well-developed characters, and really drew us into the story from the opening moments. How cool was the opening sequence with Cecil and the Red Wings? How about the selflessness of Palom and Porom, or Yang? What about the revelations about Golbez's origins? If you were an RPG fan like me back then, I know these moments made an impression on you. I also love the themes of loyalty, love, and justice that the game emphasized, and the title really gave us the sense of what would be possible in the future for Final Fantasy. The newly created active time battle system, challenging bosses, and an incredible soundtrack really made the game stand out. When it was released, it was by far the best RPG on the system, and some still view it as their favorite Final Fantasy game. The number of times it's been remade is a testament to how much respect it should get. Ranked at number 4 is Super Metroid, the 3rd installment of one of the most legendary franchises in video game history. In 1994, no game was more widely anticipated than this one, and it didn't disappoint at all. A total breakthrough in action platforming, it provided a huge, open-ended world of mystery and secrets that expanded upon the best parts of the first 2 Metroid games. And man, that haunting musical soundtrack still sticks in my mind. The dark and ambient feel really sets the stage for the adventure. But what really stood out about this Metroid were the innovative power-ups and special abilities that really pushed the series into new frontiers. Who could forget the grappling beam, which allowed Samus to fling herself over the chasms, or the high jump boots, which would allow you to get to areas you couldn't previously explore. These were really cool items that were fun to use. Many of these new items also opened up new paths of exploration and made the game feel so big. It was also loaded with secrets that took time to discover, so you couldn't just blow through it and feel satisfied right away. There was a lot of replayability here. Also, the bosses were fantastically designed, far better than any previous Metroid game, and there were just so many more of them. I mean, we all remember facing the real Kraid after the mini version you run into right before. But then there's Crocomire, Ridley, and of course Mother Brain too. When it came out, I never wanted to put my controller down and take a break. I always just wanted to see what awaited me in the next area. I think it's the best action platformer on the SNES, and the system had plenty of great action platformers. Super Metroid is still fun to go back to today, and holds up extremely well. Coming in at number 3 is The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. This game was so good that it would be criminal for it to be missing from any top 10 list. As the first and only Zelda game on the system, it managed to blow away the expectations of fans, even though hype for it was through the roof at the time. A Link to the Past energized gamers by bringing the gameplay back to a system that took what the original Legend of Zelda did well on the NES and made it that much better. In the first seconds of the game, you're thrown into an epic adventure that pits you against Agnem, the evil sorcerer who threatens Hyrule. Of course, you eventually find out that Agnem is actually the alter ego of Ganon, who successfully breaks the seal of the Seven Sages and throws Link into the Dark World. This surprise, as well as the sheer number of dungeons and content in general, was really an impressive feat. The dungeons themselves were perfectly designed, most of them making use of the mechanics of the special items you find within. A Link to the Past also offered plenty of secrets for meticulous players to seek out. The amazing gameplay and huge world made the title into a cherished classic. It represented the best the Zelda series had to offer, and I don't blame anyone who ranks this one higher than I do. Number 2 is Chrono Trigger, a game created by a literal dream team of the greatest RPG minds in the industry. Square and Enix worked hand in hand to incorporate the best parts of Final Fantasy with the best parts of Dragon Quest, and they left us all with a momentous achievement. With its amazingly unique story, well-developed and fun characters, and a creative battle system that featured multi-character special attacks, RPG fans around the world fell in love with this title. Who could forget the feeling you got when you first visited a new time period for the first time? Or when you defeated Magus in his castle? There were just so many amazing moments, it would be impossible to list them all. Chrono Trigger was made even better by the lack of random encounters, the great assortment of secrets, and emphasis on character development. Even the optional bonus content was fun and interesting. The new Game Plus functionality, which allowed you to start the game anew with your items and levels, also packed a ton of replay value into the experience. There's basically nothing bad to say about Chrono Trigger. It's really the complete package as far as RPGs go. I'm never surprised when people continue to praise it after so many years. In my mind, the very best SNES game ever released was Final Fantasy VI, which utterly blew my mind when it was released in 1994 as Final Fantasy III. It epitomized all the best aspects of the Final Fantasy series. An ambitious story filled with twists and turns, a cast of characters you can fall in love with, and a fun progression and advancement system. From even the first seconds of the game, you're thrown into a mystical tale that combines medieval fantasy with a modernizing world of machinery. No one could forget the game's story. It was truly one of the best ever made. From the surprising secret of Figaro Castle, to Celeste's performance at the Opera House, to the cataclysm of the world at the hands of Kefka, there were so many timeless moments that kept me engaged in a way no other game could. The game was long and had a bigger cast of characters than any previous entry in the series, and allowed customization of your characters through the Esper system. Each character also had one unique special command, so they also stood out from each other on top of the magic system. For my money, Nobuo Uematsu's soundtrack for the game is still the best of its era. Most importantly, Final Fantasy VI was filled with heart, the kind of game you can tell the developers were really invested in. It's absolutely my favorite SNES title, as well as my favorite video game of all time. Like I mentioned earlier, the SNES had so many amazing classics that it was extremely hard to throw this list together. Even still, I definitely need to note some honorable mentions. I strongly considered Earthbound, Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario World, TMNT 4 Turtles in Time, and ActRaiser for this list. I wanted to include them all on the list, but they just got beat out. The struggle was real. Anyway, leave me a comment below and let me know what you thought of my list. Did I miss any of your favorites? Let me know what I got right and wrong. It's all in good fun anyway, and I'd love to know what you think. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell below for more retro gaming content, and please join my Discord community linked in the description. Also, please consider supporting my channel via YouTube's Join feature to receive member exclusives, such as advanced videos and complete video transcripts.